There is a question that has haunted music historians for 70 years. Why did the most famous entertainer in the world, a man who commanded massive global demand, never once play a concert outside the United States? Fans in Europe, Japan, and the UK were desperate to see him. Promoters knew he could have easily sold out foreign stadiums for years. Yet all of that international demand was completely ignored. The explanation is not a logistical failure. It all comes down to a single manager operating behind a fake name, a fake military title, and a fabricated biography. His control over his star client wasn't based on sharp business acumen or deep loyalty. He managed to take his own personal paranoia and build it into a permanent geographical cage around someone else. His true story begins in June 1909 in the provincial city of Breda in the southern Netherlands, where a delivery driver and his wife welcomed a son they named Andreas van Kuijk. In May 1929, a 23-year-old woman in Breda was beaten to death in her home. The murder was never solved and no arrest was made. But within days of her death, Andreas, a young man known locally for an explosive temper, vanished from the country. He slipped into the United States illegally, likely hiding as a stowaway in the hull of a ship. To evade whatever law enforcement might be looking for him back home, he abandoned his family completely, never speaking to his own mother again. He needed a new identity. He became Thomas Andrew Parker and quickly found a home in the chaotic, unregulated world of the American traveling Carnival circuit. He learned how to read a crowd and separate marks from their cash. He sold hot dogs with no meat inside and painted sparrows yellow to pass them off as canaries. To him, exploitation wasn't something to hide, it was a skill to be refined. By 1948, he leveraged his promotional talents to help a man named Jimmy Davis get elected governor of Louisiana. In return, Davis awarded him a purely ceremonial, honorary title in a state militia that didn't even exist. From then on, the fugitive from Breda insisted on being addressed as Colonel Tom Parker. He wore the suits of a legitimate businessman, but the entire illusion hinged on one unbending rule. He could never, under any circumstances, leave the borders of the United States. In the summer of 1954, a 19-year-old truck driver walked into Sam Phillips' Sun studio in Memphis. Elvis Presley had an effortless, instinctive ability to take gospel, rhythm and blues, and country music and fuse them seamlessly into a sound that crossed all conventional boundaries. The public reaction was immediate and chaotic. By early 1955, his performances across the American South were devolving into near riots, with crowds physically overwhelming security just to reach him. When Parker traveled south to witness the hysteria for himself, he didn't focus on the music. He saw pure, limitless financial opportunity. Elvis possessed genuine cultural power. For a man trained entirely in the art of the grift, this young singer was the ultimate, endlessly exploitable mark. Parker moved systematically to isolate the young star, pushing out early promoters and maneuvering until he stood alone as Elvis's sole manager. He built an impenetrable wall around his client. Every contract, television appearance, and career decision had to filter through him, making Elvis entirely dependent on his judgment. But as Elvis's fame exploded globally, international promoters begged for tour dates. Parker's lack of citizenship instantly became a massive liability. Leaving the country meant applying for a passport. It meant background checks and customs agents. For an illegal immigrant linked to an unsolved murder, crossing a border meant risking prison or immediate deportation. So Parker quietly began turning down million-dollar overseas offers. He would cite security concerns or claim the foreign venues were inadequate, deliberately sabotaging the tours to protect his own secret. The largest stage on Earth was artificially shrunk down. Elvis's potential was strictly bounded by the exact dimensions of his manager's hiding place. With the geographical cage locked, Parker moved to escalate control over exactly what his client earned. An average music manager takes 10 to 15%, but Parker demanded a 50% cut of Elvis's earnings. In 1973, he convinced Elvis to sell his entire back catalog to RCA for $5.4 million, instantly pocketing half. That single contract permanently stripped Elvis of the long-term royalty rights to his own work, all to generate immediate liquid cash for his manager. Parker was executing a long-term heist, systematically liquidating the king's legacy for personal gain. Unable to send his star overseas, Parker's final physical cage took shape in Nevada, locking Elvis into endless, grueling residencies in Las Vegas. Exhausted by the relentless system, Elvis died in 1977 at the age of 42, his body failing him in the isolation of Graceland. Even with his client gone, the extraction continued. Parker managed to defraud the grieving estate out of an estimated $7 to $8 million before he died in 1997. Parker died a forgotten con man in an empty hotel room, his entire life spent hiding behind a cheap illusion. Elvis's music, however, secured a genuine global immortality. The Carnival barker from Breda managed to steal the money, lock away the passport, and shrink the geography of a lifetime. But the raw talent that walked into Sun's studio remained completely untouchable. Look at the faces in this crowd. In the late 1950s, the hysteria surrounding Elvis reached a scale the music industry had never encountered. Promoters across the globe knew the exact financial value of that hysteria. In 1956, one group offered a staggering £1 million for Elvis to play just 2 shows at Wembley Stadium in London. Japan, Australia, and South America sent constant, lucrative invitations. But those international stadiums remained empty. Every massive overseas offer was rejected. In his entire career, the most famous entertainer on the planet never performed a single concert outside North America. This isolation was a geographic cage, constructed with meticulous care by the man who controlled every aspect of his life. That man was Colonel Tom Parker. He was a relentless promoter who took total authority over Elvis's schedule, strictly enforcing the ban on international travel under the guise of security. His real reason was entirely personal. Tom Parker was an illegal immigrant. He had never become a United States citizen, meaning he possessed no passport. If he left the country, there was no guarantee immigration officials would allow him back in. Letting Elvis tour the world without him was a risk he refused to take. Away from Parker's daily influence, his client might realize he could function perfectly well on his own. To protect his own secret, Parker forced the biggest star in the world to operate entirely within the borders of the United States. Parker secured this control through a calculated flanking maneuver. Instead of confronting Elvis's original manager, a Memphis disc jockey named Bob Neal, Parker bypassed him and went straight to Vernon and Gladys Presley. The Presleys were a modest, working-class couple with absolutely no experience in the music business. Parker arrived at their door radiating the warmth and authority of a man who spent decades making strangers trust him, slowly persuading them to grant him proxy negotiating power. Within weeks, before Bob Neal even grasped what was happening, Parker used that proxy authority to blindside Sun Records. He sent a telegram to the label's owner from New York, declaring his sole right to negotiate, and immediately offered to sell Elvis's contract. In November 1955, RCA Victor bought that contract for $35,000. Out of that massive sum, Elvis received just $5,000. Parker collected his commission and assumed total operational dominance. By March of 1956, he had secured a contract making him sole manager, eventually commanding half of everything his client earned. This photograph shows Elvis in 1958, pointing to his army patch. He had been drafted, marking the only time he would ever go overseas. Parker actively encouraged him to serve as a regular soldier rather than join special services, which would have required international touring without his manager. While Elvis was stationed in Germany, his mother Gladys died. It was a devastating loss that left him completely shattered. Parker attended the funeral. While the family grieved, he spent the service quietly and methodically working on Vernon, securing total control over Elvis's financial affairs. Gladys had been the one person genuinely skeptical of Tom Parker. With her dead, there were no barriers left. The manager's grip on the Presley estate was now absolute. Look at the scale of these marquees. By 1969, Parker needed a way to generate global-scale revenue without crossing an international border. His solution was the Las Vegas residency. He booked Elvis for 2 shows a night, 7 nights a week. While other artists were touring the globe, the king of rock and roll was locked into a grueling daily grind in a hotel ballroom for tourists and gamblers. Surviving that schedule required heavy medical intervention. Doctors prescribed medication to help Elvis meet the physical demands of the performances, and then added more prescriptions to manage the side effects of the first. Parker knew his client was collapsing and suggested a break, but Vernon Presley, drowning in his son's lavish spending debts, threatened to find a new manager if the tour stopped. Parker kept the domestic cash machine running. The financial pressure eventually culminated in a 1973 deal with RCA Records, a transaction music historians still view as one of the most damaging financial moves in entertainment history. Parker sold off Elvis's entire back catalog for $5.4 million. He immediately took half of that payout, $2.7 million, for himself. This storefront shows the physical history they gave away. In exchange for that lump sum, Elvis forfeited all future royalties to Jailhouse Rock, Hound Dog, Suspicious Minds, and every other song that had defined his career, a loss the estate later calculated in the hundreds of millions. This was a fire sale. Parker liquidated the most valuable asset his client owned for a quick, irreversible cash injection. This flowchart illustrates the public terms of the deal, splitting the money evenly. But there was a hidden mechanism. Parker had secured a secondary, completely undisclosed financial arrangement directly with RCA. In legal terms, this is known as self-dealing. He was negotiating on behalf of his client against the very same company that was secretly paying him on the side. For decades, Tom Parker has been credited as a promotional genius who built the modern celebrity machine. But that reputation obscures what he actively extracted from the young artist in this portrait. He constructed a gilded cage to hide his own lack of a passport, and when the financial pressures of that isolation became too heavy, he simply sold the king of rock and roll for parts.
Now, as you can see here, by 1976 there is this stark, almost unbelievable contrast between these two men. On one side you have Elvis, a fading superstar showing dramatic physical decline, a very real drug dependency, and just profound emotional exhaustion. But on the other side, you have Colonel Tom Parker, who is completely unchanged. His demeanor was entirely clinical, totally business as usual, and basically untouched by the very human tragedy that was unfolding literally right in front of him.
Section 1. The tragic final years. So, by the mid-70s, the king was in serious trouble. The factors driving his decline were deeply concerning and highly documented. His severe prescription drug dependency really wasn't a secret anymore. His weight was fluctuating dramatically, and those legendary live performances were becoming highly inconsistent. But the absolute breaking point came in July 1977. 3 guys from his own inner circle published a tell-all book called Elvis, What Happened, detailing all of his severe struggles. Elvis was devastated. He was deeply humiliated by this, and it set a very dark stage for what was coming next.
And tragically, that leads us right to this grim milestone. On August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley died at just 42 years old. Now, while the official cause of death was listed as cardiac arrhythmia, the underlying and undeniable cause, which the historical record fully acknowledges, was years of completely unchecked prescription drug dependency. And the hardest part to swallow? No one with the actual authority to intervene ever stepped in to stop it.
Section 2. A cold business reaction.
This changes nothing. Seriously, just let that sink in for a second. Colonel Tom Parker uttered those chilling words to a colleague just hours after Elvis passed away. His whole approach was purely clinical. There was no public grieving. Instead, he treated the sudden tragic death of the world's biggest icon as nothing more than a business pivot. So the crucial takeaway here is that while the entire world was collectively mourning the loss of an absolute legend, Parker was already securing his financial grip on the estate's future. Literally within hours of Elvis taking his last breath, Parker was on the phone's RCA Records. He wasn't planning a memorial service. He was actively negotiating a brand new deal to maximize revenue from the Presley estate.
Section 3. Investigating the estate.
Fast forward a bit to 1980. The state of Tennessee steps in and appoints an attorney named Blanchard Toole to examine Parker's financial arrangements. And what he uncovered was just staggering. We're talking blatant self-dealing on that RCA death deal, severe negligence with royalties, and massive estimated fraud happening right in the final years of Parker's management.
The sheer scale of this exploitation is honestly breathtaking. $7 to $8 million. Parker had defrauded the Presley estate of an estimated $7 to $8 million. And what's truly mind-blowing is that this wasn't siphoned off over his entire career. No, that $7 to $8 million figure was just in the final 3 years of his management alone.
But perhaps the wildest detail from this whole investigation is what Toole described as comically negligent. Parker had completely failed to register Elvis Presley with BMI, the organization that manages music performance royalties. So, what does that actually mean for the bottom line? It means that for years, every single time an Elvis song played on the radio, anywhere in the world, Presley received absolutely nothing. Zero. Simply because his own manager had never bothered to file the basic paperwork. It literally cost the estate untold sums of money.
Section 4. The hustler gets hustled.
So, as you can see mapped out here, the reckoning was pretty swift. After Elvis's death in '77 and that explosive investigation in 1980, the estate officially sued Parker for fraud in 1983. They settled, he was stripped of his control, and Parker retreated out to Las Vegas, where he stayed until he died in 1997. And what exactly did he do in Vegas during those final years? Well, he gambled. Parker was a massive compulsive gambler. And the profound, dark irony of the whole thing is that he lost millions of dollars gambling at the exact same Hilton Hotel casino where he had previously worked Elvis to the absolute point of exhaustion. When you look at the final accounting, it's wild. Over his lifetime, Colonel Tom Parker earned well over $100 million. Yet when he died in 1997, his estate was worth barely $1 million. The Carnival barker from Breda, the guy who spent 60 solid years hustling the whole world, had ultimately been hustled by the one game he just couldn't walk away from.
Section 5. The cost of loyalty.
Now you might be wondering, and it's the most natural question to ask, with all that financial damage, the missing royalties, the horrific physical toll so clearly documented, why didn't Elvis just walk away? Why on earth did he stay? The reality is, Elvis was trapped by his own profound loyalty. He trusted Parker the way a young boy trusts a man who seems to have all the answers. Remember, Parker was the first person to tell Elvis he could be the biggest star in the world. And more importantly, he proved it. Elvis even admitted he loved Parker like a father. By the time the actual devastating cost of that relationship became fully visible, Elvis was simply too famous, way too dependent, and ultimately just too depleted to break free. Actor Tom Hanks, who portrayed Parker on film, really hit the nail on the head with this quote. He said Parker was, quote, both a genius and a scoundrel, a very disciplined man, but also a guy you might want to check your wallet around. And honestly, that might be the most charitable description anyone has ever offered of a manager who built an absolute legend while simultaneously bleeding it totally dry. I want to leave you with this one final thought. When Colonel Tom Parker was once asked directly, point blank, if he ever truly loved Elvis, he paused. He never actually answered the question. Instead, he gave this incredibly chilling evasion. He said, "I don't think I exploited Elvis as much as he's being exploited today." It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is the true cost of blind loyalty? And what exactly happens when the people we trust to guide us are only ever watching the bottom line?
I was born in a shotgun house on the wrong side of the Mississippi line. Mama sang me gospel in the morning, and the blues would find me every night. I had nothing but a feeling, something burning in my chest, like a fire that needed feeding, like a man who couldn't rest. I picked up every sound I ever heard and made them all my own. I didn't know where I was going, I just knew I couldn't stay at home. I walked into a little studio in Memphis, Tennessee. A man behind the glass said, "Boy, let's see what you can be." I sang the way I always sang, the only way I knew. Half gospel, half the blues, and something brand new. They said, son, you got a gift that the whole world needs to hear. I believed every word of it, and that was my first mistake right there. Because a gift don't come for free. No, a gift don't come for free. Somebody's always standing just outside what you can see, waiting on the moment that you hand them your hand, and you trust them with the road to a place you'll never land. No, a gift don't come for free. He wore a white suit and a big cigar, and he talked like a man who'd seen it all. He said, boy, I'm gonna make you the biggest star to ever stand tall. He said, sign right here and trust me, I've been doing this for years. I'll take care of every detail. You just give them what they want to hear. And I believed him like a boy who's never been believed before. He was the first man who said yes when the whole world said no more. He put me on the television, put my name up on the signs, put me on the radio till every heart knew every line. He sold me to the people, made me something like a king. But a king inside a kingdom is a bird that cannot sing. I said, Colonel, take me overseas, take me where they know my name. He said, boy, the world's too dangerous, and he never said the real reason for his game. Because a gift don't come for free. No, a gift don't come for free. Somebody's always standing just outside what you can see, waiting on the moment that you hand them your hand, and you trust them with the road to a place you'll never land. No, a gift don't come for free. He sold my songs in '73, every note I'd ever made. Said it was the right thing, said it was a fair trade. I watched my music leave my hands like water leaving sand, and all the gold I thought I built was someone else's land. Heartbreak Hotel and Hound Dog, Suspicious Minds and more. Every song that made me walking out somebody else's door. I kept on singing every night, 2 shows in Las Vegas heat. The doctors gave me something just to get me on my feet. I should have stopped, I know it, should have rested, should have healed. But the colonel kept the schedule, and I kept the way I feel. Mama, I wish you could have seen what this road was gonna cost. She was the only one who warned me. She was the first thing that I lost. I'm not angry at the man, he did what carnival men do. He saw something worth taking, and he took it clean on through. But I want you to remember, every time you hear my name, that the voice and the man singing were never quite the same. The voice was free and flying, the man was in a cage, built from trust and paper and a colonel's hollow rage. But a gift don't come for free. No, gift don't come for free. Somebody's always standing just outside what you can see. Waiting on the moment that you hand them your hand, and you trust them with the road to a place you'll never land. But I'd do it all again, Lord, I'd do it all again. 'Cause even in the cage I gave everything I had, and everything I gave was real, 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 real. Real, real, real. Everything I gave was real.
Thank you once again for watching. So you know, this channel or this video was made possible with the use of Google Notebook LM, and the sound was made with Track. Thank you very much for watching, and please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share to our channel for wonderful content and content like this.